Hi everyone, today's video is on a topic that I mention a lot when giving tips to startups, content creators and entrepreneurs, and that is your personal brand. I'm going to delve deeper and give you tips on how to grow and build your personal brand. This one is a nice one, the reason being it's not only for business startups and entrepreneurs, but virtually for everyone. This is because in the digital age, everyone has a personal brand. What is a personal brand? A personal brand is how people perceive you based on what they know about you. A brand isn't just a recognizable name and logo that distinguishes you in a crowded market. Your brand isn't what you say it is, it's what your customers, say it is. People will judge you based on what they see and hear about you. The first step to building a personal brand is to start with why. Why do you want a brand? What is your purpose for building a brand? For example, if you're in the fashion industry, you want to build a personal brand so that other people will know who you are and they will know what your designs look like and your kind of style so that they will feel confident hiring you for their services. Therefore, your goal is to get people to see you, see your work and want to hire you. This is where you decide who you are and what you stand for. At your core, your brand really needs to reflect who you are. Insert your own personality into your brand. Insert your own desires, your dreams, your wishes, because a brand is really just a reflection of you. So by focusing on what you want to accomplish and who you are as a person is a great way to build a brand that has a long-lasting impression and really drives customers to your doors. Paying attention to what you stand for and what you mean and what you wish a brand could be is extremely valuable and very important. The next step is to research your audience and your competition. When building your brand, you want to make sure that you're researching the right people. Therefore, you need to define who your audience is. Is your audience older? Are they younger? Are they men? Are they women? Are they college graduates? Whatever that happens to be, you want to make sure that your brand is reflective of what they're looking for, something that really means something to them. Know your ideal customer and create content for that person. Have this persona in your mind, really go in depth to who this person is, their fears, their deepest desires, their hobbies, and envision that person and create content for that person. To add to these, you also want to see what your competition is doing. Identify what they're doing right and then look at what they're doing wrong. Is there an opportunity for you to come in and shake up the industry a little bit? You can do this with a brand name, logo, how your brand identifies. Make sure that you're not just trying to be different just for the sake of being different. You need to pay attention to what your clients want and pay attention to the people who have been in the industry longer than you have. Chances are that they already know the do's and the don'ts in that particular field. By looking into their history, you're likely to avoid some pitfalls that you might otherwise fall into. At the end of the day, if you're able to match what your customers are looking for, and that brand is a reflection of who you are and what your brand speaks for, then that's your goal and that's what you should aim for. Another important step in branding is choosing a name. So are you still deciding on what name to use for your brand? If you are, choosing a name can be tough, but don't let yourself get stuck at that point. Some people can't decide on a name and therefore don't start building their brand. This can be pretty nerve-wracking. Just start with anything, create content, practice and build it. You can always change your brand name later. Back then, when I was brainstorming names for my new personal brand for Mompreneur Society, I wanted the name to suit the brand that I wanted to create. I found it difficult because I had these cool and powerful names that I wanted to use, but then it was also important for my audience to know what the brand is about just from the name. This goes back to your brand purpose. So for me, I wanted to create something inspirational, empowering, and meaningful. I had a list of words that I really liked, and then I just started combining words together. So the first tip is your brand should embody what your brand stands for in some sort of way. I also wanted to create a word that is fresh so that when someone Googled the name Mompreneur Society, I would come up in search results. A lot of people make the mistake of choosing a great name, but a million people already have it. So definitely choose something that is a little different. This was challenging for me because I knew that mompreneur has been used a lot, but then that's why I decided to add society to it. Well, it's difficult to think of something original, but if you want to, it's totally possible and you can do it. Just keep trying and try and make sure that the name is not heavily used by other people already, especially people who are already really established in the industry. Lastly, you really want a name that's relatively easy to remember and can be consistent in all your platforms. So you want to have the same account name everywhere so that it's easy for people to find you. Now let's talk about shaping your brand story, tone, style, and the feeling that your brand exudes. Be your brand. Your brand doesn't stop with a website or a logo, newspaper ad, or social media ad. The core message of your brand should be you. You are the biggest brand advocate. You know the brand better than anybody else, and you lead the charge defining what that brand is going to look like for your business, for your employees, and for your customers. You have to live by the brand. If you're a brand built on trust, you need to be an outstanding, trustworthy person. If yours is a brand built on providing great service, then that is something that you have to live yourself. This is especially important for local service businesses because your name gets around and people know who the owner is, especially in smaller communities. But there are also many other examples like large global businesses where the CEO didn't reflect the value that the brand was supposed to. Pay attention here. If you cannot live the lifestyle of the brand that you're trying to focus, grow, and mature, then you really need to focus on what your brand really is. Ensuring that your brand is reflective of you and that you reflect the brand is a great way to ensure that your message gets across and it's lived from top down. If you don't live the life that your brand exudes, then your employees won't and your customers won't get to either. You have to be passionate about your brand. You have to love it such that people can feel the passion behind that brand and feel the energy behind it. And when your employees, your customers, and supporters get excited about your brand, it makes you want to work towards growing the brand to the next level. Naturally, if it's a personal brand where you are the face of it, the brand should be an extension of who you are. It should be like your ideal self, what you want to appear to others, because everybody has a few sides. For instance, what I share on Mompreneur Society is a big part of me, but that is not necessarily all of me. I have other sides too, but it's really the part that you want to put forth first to other people. And this is a really fun part because you get to shape your own story and decide what story matters to your brand. And here I'm talking about what your brand stands for, what the values are, and what the personality traits are. The other step is content. Content is key. It's the way you communicate your brand to people who are willing to listen. Content is your way of expressing yourself again and again, showing all the different sides about you so that people will understand more about who you are. The first part of this is to define your voice. How do you want to speak to your audience and what should that voice look like? Are you looking at different channels, digital channels, social channels, perhaps print media, and any other broadcasting channel where your customers are going to find you? And when your customers find you, what are you saying to them? Are you a brand that reflects humor? Are you very professional and serious? Do you occasionally make jokes? What do you say to them and how do you want that to come across? Once you've defined what that voice is, you can ensure that your logo, your branding, your color choice, and your website all reflect that. By focusing on where your customer is, because you've already defined who they are, using the voice that you've chosen and defining your message on those correct channels, you have the best opportunity to ensure that you're showing up to your customers when it's relevant and they are really looking forward to interacting with your brand. Now you can pick a platform. This is your main medium for sharing your content and sharing who you are. With so many platforms out there, it is hard to do all of them at once. If you're starting a personal brand, I recommend you focus on to be an expert at one platform and then diversify with time. When choosing a platform to focus on, you will want to consider the following things. One is your brand's purpose. Another one is what you're good at and what you enjoy. Third is the best way to present your brand to others. And finally, where your audience lives. For example, if you're an artist and your work is visual, then you probably want to stick to visual platforms like Instagram or Pinterest to share your work. If, for example, the artist feels like she's better at video and loves to be on camera, then maybe she can do YouTube and mix that. Another example is if you're a stock market agent and you don't like to be on camera, but you love listening to podcasts, then you can create a podcast giving stock market advice for people who are buying their first shares, for example. You get to choose the platform that works for you depending on what you like, what works for your brand, and where your audience lives. As I was saying earlier, content is your way of communicating who you are and your expertise to all people who are willing to watch you. So the more content you create and the more consistent you are with posting your content, the more opportunities you give to others to see you, see your stuff, and to know and understand who you are. So it's all about creating consistently. But how do you create content that people want to see? First, you've got to make content that delivers value to others. It has to educate, entertain, inspire them, give them something in exchange. People are not going to watch you just for you. They're going to watch because it benefits them. Do some research and find out what people are searching for and create content around those areas. We can go deep into this topic, and I actually made another video that goes in depth on advice for using video to grow your business. You can see the link at the top left of the screen. Another thing to think about is brand personality. Give your brand a human side by defining its personality to build relationships with your customers. Your brand at its core is what your customers say about you when you're not around. What are people saying about your brand? Do they agree with your brand message or do they disagree? And this may not be a bad thing. It's not a bad idea to allow your brand some room to grow and some room to adopt over time. If you begin to understand that your customers are expecting something different, or they're looking for a different service or a standard of your brand over time, it is not a bad thing to allow that to happen naturally. Pay attention to what your customers want. Pay attention to the culture that is being cultivated by your employees. As your brand grows, it is natural for it to adapt to new ideas, new ways of thinking, and new core principles. One of the main things that make a brand successful is engaging with people and being receptive, inspirational, and having a helpful voice. People want to invest and buy from people who are engaging, people who make them feel like they're part of that brand. Try not to be so cold and distant from your customers or those who support your brand. Talk to them, respond to their queries, and just make them feel that they're part of the brand. Keep an eye on it, and that's a great way to ensure that your brand will grow over time and your business for years to come. Another thing to remember is to be original. Don't mimic others. If you mimic someone else, you can only be as good as them. You won't fully stand out from a brand or company that already exists. It may be difficult to take off because you're the same as someone else. Try to be creative, different, and fill that gap that makes you unique. Don't just copy. Of course, you can draw inspiration from other brands and build your company or brand from them, but take it to a level higher and do something different that they don't do. So in summary, we have talked about how to build your brand, and the steps include figure out why you want a brand, researching your audience and your competition, choose a name, be your brand, work on the content, and define your brand personality. I would love to hear your experiences with building your brand and what factors you considered or were important to you. And please subscribe so that you can be notified when I release new posts.